Hi there. Welcome to Craft with Kathie. I'm trying to be a little bit careful because I have some ink out here. I'm going to be working with ink tonight on this pretty pink t-shirt. And let me show you this cool stencil. Lots of different options here. We've got Raising Wildflowers, a group of wildflowers, Snack Dealer, Mama Needs Coffee, and then Legends. So basically this, you can use the Raising Wildflowers, but instead of saying wildflowers, you could substitute out the word Legends. And I think that's what I'm gonna do tonight. I'm gonna do the wildflowers and say Raising Legends. And I've got a couple different color inks out to put on here. I'm gonna be using Bumblebee, a nice bright yellow, some bright white, and then I mixed up a little cadet ink, not paste. If I say paste, I mean ink. I'm working with ink tonight. I mixed up a little to create my green because I don't know where I put my green ink. Typical me. So I'm gonna cut this up a little bit. I actually was, forgive me, but I was in a seminar that I thought was going to be wrapping up early, hence why I said I'm going live at 8:30 instead of 9. And of course, wouldn't you know, no, so I just booked out of it. I should have given myself a little extra time. Generally, it only is an hour, so I didn't expect it to go for more than an hour and a half, so I do apologize for that. So if you're not familiar with our ink can be used with our transfers or stencils. If you want to think of them as stencils on steroids. And you use ink when you want to do something that's going to be washed, whether it's clothing, fabric, textiles, blankets, pillows, a quilt, whatever, mugs. If it's going to be washed, you want to use our ink instead of our paste, because our chalk paste is made from chalk and is deliberately intended to be erasable from some surfaces such as chalkboard, dry erase boards, glass, metal, mirror, that type of thing. Wood, not so much, because most likely the pigment will soak into wood because it's porous. But sometimes you can erase it. So anyway, I'm going to start off with the raising and the flowers down here. So let me get this centered. I am not fuzzing this because it is going on fabric, so I want it as sticky as possible. And I'm using a different brand shirt today than I normally use. And whereas I usually line up with a center tag, this tag was offset. So I'm not going to line up with the tag. I actually know that right here is my center point. So that's what I'm going to go for. And this is pretty close to the width of my ink mat. You can probably see I've got the ink mat already inserted in the shirt. And the easiest way to do that is to turn it inside out, press the adhesive side of the mat to the inside of the front side of the shirt, and you're all good to go. So let's see, probably right there. I want to make sure this leaf is not off the edge. Oh, it's pretty close. Let me move that over just to here. Actually, I don't have to center anything right now, because if I just center my transfer on my mat, I'm fine. Make sure I don't have any wrinkles down here. Make sure I'm not going off the edge there. This looks a little crooked. Let me readjust a little bit. If you're ever not sure, you can measure. Anyone who caught me the other day when I couldn't cut a straight line. Yes, I still have a certain amount of vertigo and it's driving me nuts, but what could you do? I mean, short of going to the Doc in the Box, which is probably next on the agenda. I don't have many options here. Let's see. Okay, this looks good. It's just me. Okay, so thinking, there's a cut line here. I do not want to ink over the cut line, and I think I could wing it. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with it. I could see where the cut line is. I'm looking for my bright white ink. Aha, here it is. Now, the number one thing with inking, make sure your fingers are clean. You don't want ink on your fingers and to accidentally smudge your fabric. So I'm going to be careful with this. Try and stay on my transfer. I'm skipping the word wildflowers. I'm going to substitute legends for that, unless I make a mistake, and then I'll go for wildflowers. What could I say? I'm coming at you from the suburbs west of Chicago. Drop me a line and let me know where you're viewing from. Feel free to jump in at any point during my lives and ask any questions or share anything or whatever. And my people in my VIP group, let's get moving. Let's start sharing some of them projects. Share the love a little bit and show everybody else what you've been up to. Don't be shy. We're all friends here. Okay. So I will dry this and then come back in and put in the word legends. But in the meantime, I am going to start coloring in this flower, or the flowers. And I think I'm going to make them look like daisies, white daisies with a yellow center, and then obviously green for the stems and the leaves. Oops, can you see what I did there? I must have picked up some of the Cadet on my stir stick. I had a bunch of stir sticks out here, and I've got a little bit into my ink. I will obviously clean that up when I'm done. I'll be very careful to avoid it with what I'm doing right now. A little bit too much yellow on my multi-tool here. So I'm just applying the paste. I'm using the multi-tool because it has a nice small squeegee on one end to apply the bumblebee paste, the yellow. And then I'll go on to actually do the petals of the flowers. And I'll alternate between using my mini squeegee and the multi-tool, and then eventually the detail tool, which has a very tiny squeegee on the end for actually the stems of the flowers. Just kind of change up the tools to whatever works to help me get into any crowded or narrow area or where the colors are very close together. Normally I work pulling the squeegee towards myself, and actually in retrospect, thinking with this project I probably should have turned the shirt upside down to just make it a little bit easier on myself, but I didn't. As I was live, I didn't want to do that and waste time switching out my setup a little bit. So I'm just switching back and forth, like I said, between the mini squeegee and the multi-tool and then the detail tool to get into the areas that I want. I want to be careful that I don't smear my inks together or that I don't pick up any ink on my squeegee or one of my tools. And then when I put it back in the jar to grab more ink, I don't want to contaminate the ink. So just have to be a little bit careful of that. And of course, watch your fingers. However, ink dries much more slowly than our chalk paste because it's ink. Chalk paste is made from chalk, which is dry, and it dries quicker. So as I'm inking, unless I'm taking an extraordinarily long time, I really don't have to do any technique like what would be the paste and peel, because this ink will still be wet by the time I'm done with this project. So you can relax a little bit. You don't have to hurry as much when inking. Takes a little bit of the pressure off there. The main thing is just make sure you don't get ink on your fingers to smudge on your surface. That's the only thing you really need to watch for. If you do, you could try a wet cloth or a wet paper towel and try blotting up the ink. If that doesn't work, you could wait till it dries and then use like maybe the edge of the detail tool to kind of like pick off the dried ink before you heat set it. If not, neither of those methods work for you, then just find something that you could cover it up. Add a butterfly, add a bee, add another flower. Turn your little oops into a happy accident and customize your image. It's really not hard. Just relax and go with it. Have fun. Isn't that the great thing about crafting? You get to make things the way you want to. Customize to your likes. Use the colors you want. You don't have to ink everything on a transfer or a stencil. In this case, I've only used the word raising and I'm substituting the word legends for wildflowers. Mix it up the way you want it to be. Put your little stamp, your creativity, your little twist on it. The transfers are reusable with proper care, and that really means just washing the chalk or the ink out of the transfer, making sure you get it out of the silk screen, setting it down sticky side up, letting it dry, and then putting the backer back on it and putting it in its little envelope and storing until the next use. Not really much to it. I can see a lot of different uses. I mean, obviously all the different designs on this one transfer can give you about 4 different images as it is, but I think this one with the wildflowers is perfectly suited for many different things. I think this is fine for an adult t-shirt, but I could also just see the wildflowers at the bottom of a child's shirt, just kind of like as a border. It really is adorable, and you could mix up, use whatever colors you want, of course. Our ink now does come in individual packets, so if you don't need a 3-ounce jar of the ink, you can just get a little individual packet, and generally I get 2 or 3 uses out of each packet of ink or paste. So it really is a nice economical way to introduce yourself to the world of chalk and inking. I just love it. And like I said, this transfer is perfectly suited. So many different images, so much fun. Well, look at that. Time for peel and reveal. So I'm going to do a little peel and reveal here. And let's see what we're looking at. If I have any problems, I'm not lifting this totally up. I'm lifting it slowly. So if I have any issues, I could correct them before this is totally lifted off. And I think we're good here. Got a little blurring of the yellow with the flower, but I'm not going to worry about that. I mean, seriously. If I don't like it when it's dry, I could put it back down and clean my transfer, put the transfer back down, and just ink over it with the white. And I'm kind of picky. I probably will end up doing that. And of course, I've got ink on my fingers again because I touched the front of the transfer. So let me clean that off before I straighten out the shirt and go on to the next portion of it. Now I do have my drying tool here, and I'm going to use this to dry it before I lay down the word legends again, because I don't want to lay down the other part of the transfer and bump anything and smear any ink. I mean, I probably could do it without an issue, but I think not. I think I'm going to be a little bit more careful here. This did lift up. I'll straighten it out after it's dry. Let me just get my ink out of the way. I don't want it getting dried out with my drying tool. I have to fix that. Okay. If you're not familiar with our drying tool, it's pretty cool. It looks like a heat gun, but is not a heat gun. You definitely do not want to use a heat gun. You don't want to use hot air. You want to use focused cool air. Let me show you what it looks like. Like I said, it looks like a heat gun, but it is not. It's focused cool air. There's 2 different settings, and it'll dry this so that I could go on to the next section or the next step of this project without causing an issue. So let me get this dried. If you don't have our drying tool, you could use a hair dryer. Just make sure you use the cool setting. Or you could just let this wait, set it out, let it wait overnight, and let it dry. The drying time is going to vary depending upon your environment. It's been raining here for a couple days in the Chicago area, so it's pretty humid. So it might take overnight. It might take into noon tomorrow or whatever. Whereas if you're in the Arizona or Phoenix area, it will dry quicker because it's drier there. It's not as humid. So I generally just leave my projects out to dry overnight before I heat set them the next day. And then after you use your drying tool, you always want it to come back to room temperature. It barely warms it up. It really doesn't heat it. I'm going to put my hand underneath here and straighten this out. I obviously pulled up when I lifted the transfer. Okay, so let me get my legends here. Hopefully there's room. I really didn't think about that. I probably should have measured it. If not, then I'll change it. I'll just make it Wildflowers. I'm just looking to make sure this is straight before I lay it down. Okay, and all I'm going to do is ink the word Legends. And I guess I'm going to go with the white. I could do the Cadet, but I think it'll make it a little kind of funny looking, too many colors. So let me grab my white ink, my squeegee once again. If you're watching me on Facebook and would like to be privy to additional inspiration, creativity, and other projects, and the occasional game or two, comment VIP and I'll send you the link to my VIP group. If you're watching from YouTube and you find this video entertaining or informative, please consider subscribing so that you're notified of future videos. Then I'll let it sit. I'll let it actually dry overnight because it's raining right now. Oops, found more ink. Okay. And I'll just heat press tomorrow. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. Lift it up, make sure my letters look good. There we go. A little wrinkle there, but it's fine. It's just that it partially lifted from the ink mat. What do you think about that? Was quick and easy, wasn't it? A little bit longer project of mine because of so many colors and whatever, and I was trying to be really careful. But I think it turned out very, very nice. Let me know what you think. Oops. And now that I'm done, I could actually take out the ink mat. I don't have to, but you never want to leave your ink mat in when you iron or you heat press. Always take it out. It's there as a barrier so that the ink doesn't go through to the back when you're inking. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a good evening, and I will see you soon.